everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Cooling India's Future, the Strategic Role of District Cooling Systems. My name is Trupti Yargattimath, and I'm joining you from the UNEP Copenhagen Climate Centre. I'll be moderating the session today, and I'm really looking forward to the discussions we have lined up. As we have all observed, cooling is becoming one of the defining challenges of India's urban future. And as India experiences rapid urbanization and rising average temperatures, the demand for cooling is transitioning from a luxury to a critical infrastructure necessity. By some estimates, India's cooling demand could grow by nearly 8 times over the next 2 decades. So reliance on traditional standalone air conditioning units poses a severe challenge. It threatens to overload the power grid, skyrocket energy consumption, and significantly increase carbon emissions. To secure a sustainable future, India must pivot towards more efficient, scalable solutions, and district cooling systems represent the most viable path forward, especially for high-density urban areas. In this webinar, we will unpack the immense potential of district cooling as a cornerstone of India's sustainable infrastructure. Unlike conventional cooling, which relies on individual compressors for every building, district cooling aggregates demand, produces chilled water at a central plant, and distributes it via an underground network. This approach is not just a technical upgrade, it is a paradigm shift. District cooling can reduce energy consumption by nearly 30 to 50% and drastically cut peak power demand and utilize cleaner energy sources or waste heat that the individual units cannot access. As part of the effort to advance energy-efficient cooling in India, a dedicated initiative is currently being implemented through a collaboration between the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Government of India, UNEP Copenhagen Climate Centre, UNEP India, and GIZ. By bringing together BEE's national mandate, UNEP's global expertise, and GIZ's on-the-ground implementation support, this collaboration helps de-risk investment and accelerate the adoption of efficient climate-aligned cooling solutions across the country. Under this initiative, we have several important developments that are underway in India, and our panelists will be sharing more about these shortly. One key component I'd like to highlight is the development of an online district cooling virtual knowledge hub. The District Cooling Virtual Knowledge Platform is an interactive learning platform designed to build local capacity and accelerate the adoption of district cooling systems across India. The hub provides in-depth practical training on how to plan, develop, and implement district cooling projects, drawing on global best practices and real-world case studies. It has tailored the content to India's urban, climatic, and institutional context. The program is designed for a wide audience, including policymakers, municipal officials, urban planners, developers, technical experts, and engaged citizens. It aims to equip participants with the knowledge and tools needed to advance sustainable, energy-efficient cooling solutions. The training is fully self-paced, allowing participants the flexibility to learn alongside their existing commitments. There are 6 modules in total, starting with the fundamentals and progressively diving deeper into specialized topics such as policy and project development, urban planning, stakeholder engagement, and finally, business models and financing to support implementation. Together, these modules provide a strong foundation for understanding how district cooling systems work, what it takes to implement them successfully, and how they can be financed and scaled, supported throughout by lessons from successful real-world examples. Now to talk about all the exciting work currently underway in India on district cooling, we are joined by a fantastic panel of experts who have been deeply engaged in this space for many years, representing GIZ India, UNEP, and Amberside Advisors. To kick things off, I'd like to first invite Piyush to take the floor. Piyush is an energy professional with over 17 years of experience in designing, implementation, and evaluation of policies related to industrial energy efficiency. He played a pivotal role in implementing the Perform, Achieve, and Trade PAT scheme for larger industrial entities in partnership with the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. Presently, he is working as a deputy head of energy efficiency projects at GIZ, supporting programs on district cooling, carbon markets, MSME financing, decarbonization, technology implementation, etc. His professional background encompasses a range of roles, including design engineering, commissioning, operations, and efficiency optimization within thermal power plants. So, without any further ado, over to you, Piyush.
A very good evening to all the participants from India, and a very good morning and good afternoon to the participants from across the world. My name is Piyush Sharma, and I am going to present the energy efficient cooling program, which essentially is promoting the district cooling systems in India. But before going deep into the program, let me give you a brief background of GIZ, what it is and what it does. So GIZ is a German government organization, and it acts as a service provider on behalf of the whole of German government. It implements development projects in the developing and underdeveloped countries. So currently GIZ is working in around 90 countries with over 1400 projects and 21 billion euros worth of business. So GIZ has been operating since almost more than 50 years on various thematic areas such as energy, environment, climate change and natural resource management, skills and vocational training, education, water, health, good governance, and so on. In India, GIZ has been working for a fairly long time now, and currently it has around 90 ongoing projects across 31 states and union territories, working with 25 partner ministries. And these projects have been implemented by 14 commissioning parties, inclusive 5 German ministries. The projects are divided into 4 thematic areas in India. First is energy, which consists of renewable energy and energy efficiency. Second is the sustainable urban and industrial development. The third is environment, climate change, and biodiversity. And the fourth one is social and private sector development. The project that we are talking about comes under the first vertical of energy, which consists of energy efficiency as well. So on the energy efficiency front, GIZ has been partnering with the Bureau of Energy Efficiency since its formation. In fact, even before the formation of Bureau of Energy Efficiency. So the first Indo-German energy efficiency project was launched in 1995 with the Energy Management Center, which was a predecessor organization to the Bureau. And subsequently, the Energy Conservation Act came in 2001 and Bureau of Energy Efficiency got established. And since then, we have been supporting some of the major programs of the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. For example, we supported in the formation of Energy Efficiency Services Limited, which is the super ESCO of the country now. We also supported the certification examination for energy managers and auditors. We supported the national level painting competition for the school children on various thematic areas across energy conservation. Then there was a support towards the Bachat Lamp Yojana, which is the transformation from the incandescent bulbs to the CFLs. And we also supported the Perform, Achieve and Trade scheme, which became the flagship scheme of the Ministry of Power for the energy intensive industries. So the current project, the energy efficient cooling project, was commissioned in July 2019 and is coming to an end by the end of this year through 2 subsequent extensions. The project is being jointly implemented by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. It was funded by the International Climate Initiative, ICI, supported by the Federal Ministry for Environment, Climate Action, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety, BMUKN. Formerly, ICI was a part of BMWE, which is Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy. The project is also supported by the Alliance for Energy Efficient Economy, AEEE, as the PMU for the project, and United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, for establishment of a district cooling hub in India. So what was the need for such a project in India? So cooling is a development need for India. We see that India is at 1/4 of the world's average per capita space cooling energy consumption as per the 2018 report of IEA. And with the increasing population, climate change, and rapid urbanization, this is projected to grow over 8 times from 2017-18 over the next 2 decades. And out of these projections, around the space cooling in building will itself grow by more than 11 times in the next 2 decades from 2017. So this clearly emphasizes the thrust area as space cooling in buildings. And this was very well recognized by the Indian government, and subsequently India launched the India Cooling Action Plan in 2019. The India Cooling Action Plan focuses on 5 thrust areas, which are reduction of cooling demand by 20 to 25%, reduction of cooling energy requirement by 25 to 40%, reduction of refrigerant demand by 25 to 30%, recognizing cooling as a thrust area for research and development, and training and certification to over 100,000 servicing technicians. So the India Cooling Action Plan focuses on having more and more passive measures in the building, but at the same time also says that the active cooling should be met by more energy efficient technologies and climate friendly technologies. And the district cooling system perfectly aligns with this. So the district cooling system also finds being mentioned in the midterm recommendation under the space cooling in building section of the India Cooling Action Plan. So clearly aligning with the India Cooling Action Plan, the energy efficient cooling project was commissioned, which works towards creating an enabling ecosystem for the uptake of energy efficient district cooling system, and also which can operate with natural refrigerants and zero global warming potential refrigerants to the extent possible. So the program works on 3 major aspects: creating market, creating awareness, and bringing in more relevant policies for the uptake of district cooling systems. For this, the program was divided into 4 major outputs. The first output talks about the technical and economic solution for district cooling systems in India. So here we tried to do the rapid assessment and pre-feasibility studies for the prospective sites so as to bring in more confidence among the developers that this is a solution which is technically viable and economically feasible as well. Then under the output 2, we developed the business and financial models, which are essentially Excel tools, wherein the developer can key in their variables, for example, tariff, taxes, cooling demand, the diversity factors, and so on, and understand whether if they undertake a DCS project, it will be financially viable for them or not. So this essentially gives informed choice to the building developers towards district cooling system. The third is establishment of a center of excellence or district cooling hub, more commonly known as. This is jointly being done with the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, and this district cooling hub is supposed to be a one-stop solution for everything related to district cooling, be it the support towards project development, policy advocacy, or long-term training and capacity building. So everything under one umbrella program. I'll not delve more into the district cooling hub because we have presentations on the district cooling hub after my session. So now coming to output 4, which is exploring financing options. So if there are enough interests from the project developers, and if financing is needed for some of the projects, then the project will also provide access to finance to the relevant building or the land developers. So we started taking small steps, and we started moving forward. So through 2019, 20, and 21, we started with the stakeholder consultations for the formulation of district cooling guidelines. And we did some knowledge sharing and outreach events, including the Asia Clean Energy Forum. So throughout these 5 years, one thing we have been very consistent about was creating more and more awareness. So you'll find knowledge sharing, capacity building, and training programs in all the years, apart from the other activities that were being done. So in 2022, we had a study tour to GIFT City, with the policymaker, the real estate developers, the urban planners, because Gift City, perhaps in the country at present, is the only successful district cooling system at such a large scale. So the study too was done to disseminate the learnings from the implementation of DCS in Gift City. In 2023, the district cooling guidelines were finally launched at the Clean Energy Ministerial Side event, followed by a visit to Gift City for the G20 delegates. Then videos on DCS adoption in India were launched, featuring the benefits of DCS, the stages of development, and how the assessment could be done. What are the steps that could be taken to have a district cooling project finally commissioned? Uh, then an economic assessment was done, uh, clearly highlighting the cost of a district cooling project over a conventional system, because the upfront cost of a DCS system always seems high. But when we talk about a 30 years lifespan and compare the net present value of it, it's actually more economical than a conventional system. So this entire thing was brought on a Excel sheet and made publicly available for dissemination. Then we did some international study tour to Singapore on district cooling system for the policymakers to understand that what were the conducive policies there for district cooling system. And we also had district cooling international conferences and other conferences in India, wherein we tried to bring international participants as well, who shared their country's experience on district cooling. In 2024, we had an agreement with UNEP for establishment of a district cooling hub in India. In 2024, we also started with the trainings on DCS. So the first trainings were started together with ASHRAE at their ACRIX event. Then we also had a memorandum of understanding with the Breathe India, wherein we did rapid assessment of three cities, Chennai, Mumbai, and Amravati, which unleashed a potential of more than 6.5 billion US dollars in district cooling systems. And followed by regional workshops in these three locations, wherein we try to bring the relevant policymakers, the uh, private builders, or the government land developers also at a common platform, and showcase the results, that what is the potential and what benefit it could bring in for the city as such. And then, of course, there were other knowledge sharing and outreach events. In 2025, we developed the financial and business models on DCS, and we have started the capacity building and training programs on these financial and business models. We also engaged with a natural refrigerant-based chiller manufacturer from Europe to understand the cost economics of using, for example, ammonia in district cooling systems. So there are several apprehensions of using natural refrigerants in district cooling system, but we try to understand how the economics of it goes on, what are the safety concerns and other technical parameters, and this also generated interest from two other already operating district cooling systems in India. Then we did a rapid assessment for Panjim Smart City in Goa, and a pre-feasibility study for a Government of India PSU, which was NTPC, for their townships. Then we also did a report on the GHG emission mitigation potential from the ICAP scenarios. So there are various reports already developed by various other organizations, which kind of gives a bottom-up approach on what is the potential of district cooling in India. But this is more from a top-down approach, that on a very conservative side, that even if we take, for example, 2% or 5% of the scenarios mentioned under the ICAP, if they can be catered by district cooling system, what would be the potential savings that we are going to generate, and that is huge. Then we prepared several policy briefs, such as the need for a regulatory authority, GST applicability, and demand aggregation models. And all of it also goes to the district cooling roadmap in India, which will be launched tomorrow in an event in New Delhi. And all these work that has been done, I'm sure, will be taken forward by the district cooling hub even after the project ends, at least all the policy briefs, the relevant policy advocacy, and the development of projects around DCS. So, for sure, this will be taken up by the district cooling hub. So this is a summary of the pipeline and policy tools that we tried to develop. We identified 12 sites for potential feasibility, and we were in various stages of talks with them. We did some feasibility, pre-feasibility study and rapid assessments. Then we created a database of existing projects and upcoming infrastructure development that have the potential for having district cooling systems over there. We developed the economic model and the business and financial models. There are several policy briefs. Then we outlined the district cooling roadmap, giving the way for how a shared cooling infrastructure can work. Then we did some analysis on the GHG mitigation scenarios under the ICAP, and we also tried to publish various documents and various publications on drawing parallels with infrastructure projects that has already been successfully implemented in India, for example, the city gas distribution system. These are some of the project pipeline status. So currently we are very active with the Panjim Smart City and NTPC townships. They have a high potential and they have keen interest on this topic. Then there were some early stage engagement with some of the projects, and eventually they got stagnant or stalled. And then there were some discussions which were strategically de-escalated due to various reasons for unviability. So in a nutshell, I believe not only GIZ, but the entire community of organizations working in India for district cooling system have, I would say, been successful in making the entire ecosystem more conducive. For example, we can see that the policies and standards and regulations have started becoming more and more favorable for the district cooling systems. Like the National Building Code has included DCS in its latest draft. The ECS-BC also details out the performance requirements for the buildings that uses an external cooling via a shared facility such as DCS. Maharashtra has been the first state to introduce DCS-specific electricity tariff. Then at the state level, Tamil Nadu State Planning Commission came up with the DCS roadmap. Kerala government is also formally undertaking DCS assessment potentials. Haryana has also shown keen interest in DCS assessment, and there are ample opportunities for integration of DCS in the URD PFI guidelines and the climate smart assessment framework for the cities. Then at the city level, MOEFCC's ozone cell commissioned a feasibility study for 5 priority sites. Then Goa, Pune, and Surat have shown very keen interest in taking this DCS in their upcoming land developments. And a Government of India public sector undertaking NTPC has shown very keen interest where the pre-feasibility study was done, and they are very keen to implement this in their townships. So I believe that the entire community working towards the upscaling of district cooling system in India has been quite successful in one thing for sure, bringing district cooling system in all the workshops on energy efficiency in the country. So district cooling system at least has been mainstreamed now in the country, and we are seeing several development or several conducive policy reforms happening in the country, and I'm quite sure that in the coming couple of years we'll see more and more projects on district cooling system being implemented. So with this I would stop and thank you. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or queries on the email ID mentioned over here, which is piyush.sharma@giz.de. Thank you.
Thank you, Piyush, for your insights. And now I would like to invite Benjamin to take the floor. Benjamin is a program manager at the UNEP India office and is directly advising Indian cities and governments on best practice technology, policy, and business models to scale up district cooling. Benjamin joined the UN Environment Programme in 2014 from an energy consulting background and was initially based in Paris. He has supported the District Cooling in Cities initiative in 14 countries worldwide. Benjamin has recently transitioned to the UN Environment's Delhi office to expand the initiative's efforts on one of the fastest growing cooling markets in the world. So over to you, Ben.
Good afternoon. My name is Benjamin Hickman. I'm a program manager based out of UNEP India office. UNEP has been working on district cooling systems in India since 2016, promoting some of the first assessments and policy recommendations in the country. It's a very long journey with, like any new infrastructure or market, needs a lot of support to build it up. And this is an ongoing project. And today I'll share a little bit about where we are today and some of the activities in the past. So one specific area that UNEP has been working on with Bureau of Energy Efficiency and also with GIZ under the ICI project is to support the establishment of a district cooling hub in India. And the idea is that there is a significant amount of barriers to scaling up district cooling, both in development of policy and the technology barriers that are there in states, lack of understanding of district cooling development, and as well as financial barriers, both financial barriers in developing initial project ideas and the feasibility studies, but also financial barriers in implementation, and capacity barriers across the whole value chain, whether that's at the project identification and master planning, in terms of regulatory design, in terms of operation and maintenance. And so the hub is designed to address some of these barriers from a central point, with the idea that by having an expert team centrally, states can be given support and the national government given support on district cooling from a focused team. The idea of the hub is that it will be complemented by the virtual district cooling hub housed by UNEP's Copenhagen Climate Centre, but in India we'll have an actual physical hub which can provide this range of services to the different state governments and to cities and even to private sector. So this support will range in terms of awareness and capacity building, so hosting trainings and workshops and engaging with different stakeholders on what is district cooling and how to proceed projects and policies. The second area will be around actually supporting at the national and state level the policy development that's needed. So a number of different policies are needed to help unlock district cooling and allow it to reach its potential. Otherwise, it will just stay at a very low number of projects. So, for example, working with state governments to develop roadmaps for how to scale up the sector, identifying the regulatory gaps which are present in the different states and how to overcome these. So those could be regulatory gaps around rights of way, district cooling piping, or power system regulations, and then advocating and even helping design actual policies and clauses in policies and the integration into master planning. So, for example, the master plan of a major city having specific areas identified as high priority district cooling zones, and then applying specific policies to those zones to help scale up district cooling. Another area is direct implementation support, and a number of projects have already been supported and we're still supporting. So around things like identifying of sites, the master planning of the sites to identify where district cooling piping should go under roads, identifying district cooling plant locations, and then bringing that up into actually full feasibility studies and detailed project reports. And then facilitating different agreements that are required. And here we're developing standardized contracting for those agreements. and different business model recommendations as well. And then finally, the different stakeholders that are needed in district cooling is quite vast. So working with the state governments to identify those stakeholders, whether that's at the project level or at the whole of the state level, and bringing them along and helping to coordinate them, and then bringing the different expertises that they have. So whether that's the role of the DISCOM, the role of the urban planning department, the role of developers, and even the role of the environment department in pushing specific projects, all these stakeholders need to be brought together to understand their different roles, and that's something that the hub will have standard approaches and provide as support. So far, some of these areas that we're working on are that we are working with obviously our UNEP Copenhagen Climate Centre, prepare training modules for district cooling that are tailored to India. This is building on UNEP's global training modules, but making them relevant for the Indian context, the way that urban planning is done in India, the way that projects are being developed, the way power regulations are designed. So those modules are developed and are getting disseminated now. We have been doing a huge amount of awareness raising with developers and states, encouraging developers to take up district cooling and for states to incorporate district cooling into some of their state level plans like Viksit Bharat, but also into master plans and policies. I'll come on to some of those shortly. With ISHRE, we're developing a supply chain mapping across the whole country on district cooling. So where are the chillers, piping and other areas and other technical parts and components coming from? What are their costs, and what are some of the specifications like efficiency that they can provide? And this is really needed because every time we develop a new DPR or feasibility study, we really need to understand what is the local capex and opex for some of these technologies in Indian conditions. We have these numbers globally, and different private sector consultancies have these numbers, but something that's made available publicly so that we can do transparent cost-benefit analyses of projects in different states is needed. We're also preparing model contracts and project development process. So preparing the specific contracts for public-private partnerships and district cooling, but also for things like cooling offtake agreements, as well as contracts around land and district cooling plant leases. So a number of different contracts are under preparation, using examples that UNEP has already worked on in India, but also international best practices, and also taking practices from other sectors such as renewable energy. And then, as I'll come on now, we've been providing direct state government support as well for district cooling project development and delivery. So at the national level, UNEP has historically worked with Energy Efficiency Services Limited, and now also with Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Ministry of Environment, GIZ. And back in 2021, one of the first steps we did was to actually size up the potential market for district cooling, and also to identify some of the policy areas that need to come out in the first sort of 5-6 years of district cooling market development. And there's a huge range of different policies and regulations that are possible. These were further honed, and also different guidelines for how to develop projects were developed, led by GIZ, AEEE and KPMG, and UNEP experts provided inputs into those guidelines. And we've also done a number of assessments across some cities. So some historically were done in Pune, Thane, Bhopal, Coimbatore and Rajkot, and more recently in Hyderabad, Pharma City, Amaravati, Chennai, and also now in other cities in Gujarat. We've also been engaging HUDCO nationally to see how we can unlock greater infrastructure finance for states' development of district cooling projects, and particularly the role of public sector funding in district cooling as well. Specifically on Tamil Nadu, we've prepared a very comprehensive roadmap for the state government that's been published by the state government for how to develop district cooling. And certain areas in this roadmap are already under development and by the state government with UNEP support. This includes mapping out where are the priority zones, what type of projects, what are the key policy barriers that need to be overcome first, and then a roadmap for how to develop the sector over 5, 10, and 15-year time frame. One of the first important recommendations is UNEP is supporting the state government to as it's updating its master plan in Chennai, which is increasing the area under master plan by 5 times, with a huge number of satellite cities coming up around Chennai, including special economic zones and industrial areas. So UNEP has prepared comprehensive recommendations for how those high priority zones should be taken up for district cooling based on floor area and type of built up area. Actually suggest which zones the master plan should push for mandatory analysis of district cooling, and if there is a viability, mandatory development of district cooling alongside supportive regulations and incentives. And this is currently under review with the state government. And as part of that as well, looking to update the development control regulations in the state, where we also provide inputs on district cooling as well as passive cooling, because both should be developed in parallel. And then specific pilots. So a number of projects have already been identified in Tamil Nadu, which are captive district cooling plants with a number of buildings, but these are not able to scale in the same way that the merchant district cooling can, because the business model is just for the specific site. So we have been looking at FinTech City and Knowledge City with TIDCO, and Knowledge City has already integrated district cooling into its master plan, and FinTech, we're working on phase 2 now to integrate district cooling into its design, with the potential also to integrate to phase 1 of FinTech City. And a number of other projects are also getting identified in the state as well. And in the master plan, the focus is really around identifying the priority zones, and then making the case that district cooling is integrated in those zones from the beginning as a public utility. That doesn't mean that it's going to be a fully public model, but it means that alongside things like water, power, district cooling is prioritized for delivery to buildings, and that we actually have the mandates and incentives needed for its adoption, so that developers are on board as well. Maharashtra, we've been engaging and providing support to Maharpreet, who have also been leading on district cooling in the state, including, we brought Maharpreet officials to Singapore to see a number of projects, and have also been engaging with the Environment Department in Maharashtra. We have an MOU with them, including district cooling. We are working on an assessment of Bandra Kurla complex with the Mumbai Metropolitan Regional Development Authority and with Maharpreet to take this forward as a potential pilot site for district cooling, where we'll be looking at how to lower the actual temperature in Bandra Kurla complex and see it as a brownfield retrofit for district cooling. This is under initial analysis now. And with MMRDA, we're looking at other high priority zones in and around Mumbai. Mumbai's got a huge amount of growth potential going out into a number of satellite cities. And this growth and the role of district cooling, both to deliver cooling efficiency, but also to support reduction of urban heat island assessment, is underway now. And that analysis is expected in the first half of next year. We've also been providing inputs on Viksit Bharat with the Environment Department, and we'll be kicking off a state cooling action plan as well with Maharashtra, which will include district cooling and how to specifically identify other district cooling potential areas in the state. With Thane and Nagpur, we have looked at district cooling in the past, and we'll be reopening that work now. Also with its role as in reducing extreme heat in the cities, which the extreme heat that they're facing. In Delhi, we have been identifying a number of transformative projects for district cooling, including in and around the presidential estate, where we are assessing district cooling potential and developing a kind of master plan for for that area to include district cooling as a long-term development, but also with some of the stadiums around Delhi and the opportunity to link them up with surrounding buildings in a district cooling model, as well as with Scope Complex. We're also working with the Delhi government to prepare a cooling action plan, where district cooling is flagged as one of the priority areas, both to lower the urban heat island, but also to provide sustainable cooling and to help balance the power grid. And we've commissioned a study to map out the cooling demand in Delhi and to identify high priority pockets and to see the impact of cooling demand on the energy infrastructure in urban heat island. And a number of projects will come out where specific priority zones for brownfield or greenfield development of district cooling can be seen as well. And finally, UNEP is also working with a number of other states, and this is not even the full list, but different state governments are approaching for support. So historically, we've worked with the Andhra Pradesh Capital Regional Development Authority, which has tendered out district cooling in the governmental complex in the capital city of Amaravati. We're keen to see if that district cooling tender can get expanded to other parts of the city and to other areas of Andhra Pradesh. The specific model of tendering that's been developed there can inspire other projects as well. So as part of the district cooling hub, we're actually going to be hosting examples of different contracts from some of these projects that can be shared to other states. Same in Telangana, where we working with Hyderabad Pharma City, which have tendered out and secured financing for Asia's largest district cooling system. Particularly, we're focused around how to incorporate some international best practices in terms of incorporation of renewable energy, but also the use of low GWP refrigerants. And then finally, we are in discussion with Gujarat government with a number of projects that can come up, particularly around development of new high-speed rail and specific stations, incorporating district cooling into the local area plans that are coming up there as well. Thank you very much, and please feel free to reach out to UNEP to understand more on this work on district cooling or to get engaged. This work is also being done under the framework of the Cool Coalition, and we sincerely welcome all partners to join us. This development of this market in India is a multi-stakeholder challenge, and we're very happy to partner with anyone that can bring specific expertise in any of these areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben, for that overview. I would like to now invite Shravya to the floor. Shravya is a strategic finance professional whose expertise spans project and structured finance, M&A, and debt syndication. She brings deep experience in financial and business advisory, supporting activities including commercial and financial due diligence, valuations, strategy design, and investment advisory. Shravya has worked with an impressive mix of public and private companies, equity and debt investors, and advisory bodies, delivering insights that drive strong commercial outcomes. She is currently affiliated with Amberside Advisors, where she contributes her expertise to financial and commercial advisory across low-carbon energy, infrastructure, and public sector projects, areas that are increasingly crucial in today's evolving economic and environmental landscape. So over to you, Shravya.
Thank you, Trupti, for that introduction. And also at the outset, I would like to thank you, Clara, and everybody at the UNEP Copenhagen team for involving us and for giving us this opportunity to be part of the virtual hub. And I hope that this provides context and is also useful for whoever is accessing it. Before I get into the business models and financing structures, let me take just a couple of minutes to introduce what we do here at Amberside Advisors. So we are Amberside Advisors. We were founded way back in 2009, and since 2022, we've been part of Steer Group. We are a group of about 45-50 financial advisors, financial modelers, analysts, etc. I myself come from a financial modeling background. I've in my previous life as well, I had done a lot of financial modeling and transaction for renewable energy asset classes. Within Ambassador Advisors, we do our proposition is financial advisory, performance monitoring, and commercial advisory. These are the three main buckets. Within financial advisory, performance monitoring, we do M&A, we do operational modeling, portfolio analysis, etc. And commercial advisory has been a more recent addition, probably since 2022. It's been led by our director, Mark Easter. And commercial advisory, again, has a lot of energy transition related projects under its belt. We are also one of the leading advisors in the district heating landscape here in the UK. So again, the reason is we are a very, I think, a unique mix of strategy, commercial, and financial people. So which is why I think the combination works really well when we are delivering value projects to our clients. Coming into energy transition, we focus on greenfield and brownfield projects. So we kind of help them into becoming investment ready and to drive those transactions to close and kind of enable that energy transition project to take off and start delivering. And across, again, we work with both public and private sectors. So private sectors, investors, fund managers, public sectors, the local authorities, etc. So look, and we help them design feasible and viable solutions. So we help in setting, we help the energy service companies into developing assets, or in their process of developing assets, we help them understand where is the risk, where can we add value, and how can they add value to kind of make it a better proposition. Briefly touching on our district heat network expertise and experience, as you can see, we have been involved in most of the very well-known district heating projects here in the UK. We have also been advising DESNIS in their Green Heat Network Fund, which has been, we have been part of it since 2018, and across the segment, again, we have provided support from commercial strategies to financing strategies. Going into a very quick snapshot of our UK heat network credentials. You can very clearly see the GHNF there. And apart from that, I'd like to highlight the NLWA and the Bristol City Leap programs. Again, we have been involved quite significantly in these, and we have been helping the local authorities in pulling together their strategy and action plans. Coming into a little bit of a deep dive into the district heating and cooling in the UK. Now, district heating in the UK, again, this is not a very new sector for the UK. It has been in there since the 1960s or the 70s. So originally it was recovering heat from coal-fired power production, and Southampton in the 1980s, which made use of deep geothermal boreholes, etc. Given the UK climate, heating is typically the key energy service. However, power generation and supply, as well as cooling, are often included within the schemes. Cogeneration, trigeneration technologies, heat pumps, as efficient technologies. Now, we can see them more and more increasingly within the renewable energy markets, and it is becoming the primary generation source for many of the heat networks. Again, recovery of heat from waste sources. Given this context, again, it is still a very it is not a very matured market, and compared to like different parts in the Europe, like Scandinavia, etc., Poland even, our market penetration has been about 2%. So there is a strong push to push it almost up to 20% by 2040, and we can see a lot of activity which is being driven because of those policy goals. Coming into the business models, we have, again, the same variety of business models that we see elsewhere, the public sector led and private sector led, and my favorite are the PPP models. So public sector led, we have established examples like the Pimlico models, where the local authority retains the ownership and also delivers the projects. And private sector led, again, we have plenty of private players within the UK markets like Veolia and NG, etc., providing specific services. The PPP models, again, a combination of both private players and public players. So the concessionaire is generally the private player, and he's given the 15 to 40-year concession period. Again, Southampton is one of the very good examples of a PPP model. If we are looking at some really good examples for the district heating networks here in the UK, a couple of them here, which is the Olympic Park and Stratford City Community Energy Network. So this was almost 16 kilometers of heating and cooling networks. Again, one of the reasons that we kind of chose this was because it's not just heating that this network was designed for, it was also designed for the cooling network. So a little bit of forward thinking there. And again, procured, it was procured by the Olympic Delivery Authority. And it was a very unique capitalization of the very intense regeneration of the Olympic Park area prior to the Olympics being held on the site, and then afterwards the operational 40-year term, again, which was anchored with the Olympic venues, athletes, villages, etc. So again, a very good mix of consumer base there, and we have the CHP gas energy centers with very significant capacity for expansion. So very much future ready, and the business model that this entire establishment required was quite complex, because it was taking into account, say, things like statutory land powers, specific legislations, which again, the title holders were required to connect to the network, etc. And the winning bidder, which was the GDF Suez, they had spent, I think, about 100 million or more for the initial phase for capital expenditure. So again, connection charges, consumer tariffs, etc., which were standardized agreements. So the business model and the strategy and finance models for this one have been quite intense, and they also kind of led to how the following district heating networks in the UK took shape. Another good example is your Newcastle Regenerate partnership. So the Newcastle City Council, it procured NG Group as the strategic energy delivery partner, a partnership we see happening quite often within the UK markets. So a range of services relating to district energy schemes were within this. Now, touching on just a couple of more case studies here, advanced zoning program, again within the UK, it's aimed at identifying opportunities for accelerating the pace of zoning for heat network delivery, and also to capture lessons and feedback. And the reason I think this is quite important is this is a direct learning that can be applied elsewhere across the world, where we can see how feedback into policy development is quite critical. And why is it critical to attract that private sector investment? Because it provides clarity on where, say, heat networks or cooling networks are going to be the most cost-effective solution. And when we are looking at decarbonization, again, this is quite a critical segment. So pilot areas that were receiving government funding, I think over to the tune of 5.8 million, where they're looking to start construction by the end of 2026 and create jobs, and also help achieve that decarbonization goal. So once designed, certain buildings will have a heat demand of 100 megawatt hour or more annually, so they be mandated to connect into the network, and also it's going to be cost effective for them to do so. So these pilots are definitely going to help accelerate that pace of adoption of district energy systems. Bristol City Leap, again, a very clear 20-year public-private partnership between Bristol City and Amoresco. So Amoresco and Vattenfall, and almost £1 billion of infrastructure across Bristol City. So again, one of the very key projects, and falling into this segment of what can we learn and how are we applying those learnings into the next stage of district energy networks here. So coming into district cooling in India, very much, I think a lot of people say it's in a very nascent phase. I think it's slowly coming out of it being in a nascent phase into an area where people are aware of it, maybe in not in certain jargon and terminology as district cooling, but definitely energy efficient solutions. And I think, the age-old question, why should cooling matter, or why is there a need for district cooling or district energy systems to be adopted? To kind of give numbers, especially in the India context, the volume itself is so heavy and high that any numbers are not really in hundreds of thousands, they are in millions and billions only. So 1.8 billion of commercial area and 320 million units of housing stock, and a lot of them say even this could be far exceeded by what happens in real time with very rapid urbanization. So taking that into account, but looking at a wider penetration, 10% probably is the air condition penetration, also because of the demographics that we have, etc. But there is no denying that cooling is going to be an essential requirement. It is no longer in the domain of luxury. So rising heat, we've had so many CDTs, I think more heat days in the last 1 year compared to any time in the history, recorded history. So traditional AC systems, they are not designed to have that levels of energy efficiency that other systems are now proving. So innovation in a lot of these things is going to drive home the requirement to also revamp, maybe retrofit, but we'll come to that, but revamp in the way we are looking at greenfield developments and how different developments can look at accessing a better, innovative, and also cost-efficient cooling systems. And again, I think this is really the crux of our presentation now. What is the role of business models and a viable business model in district cooling projects? So essentially, when we start off with any project, what we are like looking for is a lower cost to finance it, because anything is going to require that capital investment. It could be your debt and equity which is coming in as capital investment, but the way we structure it and the way that is required is going to be a critical element. And we in India, we are at this juncture where access to finance is both available to a certain extent, but also quite difficult to access if it is just within a domestic landscape that we are looking at. So there is a critical requirement to attract and engage investors, operators across the life cycle, because only once we do a very viable business model, which would involve not just the financing side of things, but definitely the operational and performance elements, is that when the projects will start performing really well and the operations of the project will start giving results, which ensures not just the project stability and longevity, but in fact it'll feed back into this entire ecosystem where it also becomes a benchmark, it becomes a new standard, and we can start accessing how different things can work. Uh, very much like in the UK or elsewhere in the world, the business models within district cooling systems could be, a single ownership, completely public, completely private, or a hybrid ownership. Hybrid ownership, again, we see it a lot adopted within the Indian context, especially in your transport segments like your road segments or your airport segments. There is a lot of PPP models which have worked and which continue to work, which is why we see a lot of concessions again being driven in that segment. Now, there also needs to be appreciation that infrastructure projects are going to be in that level of magnitude. Whereas if we are talking about entry level district cooling systems or district energy projects, these might not have the same level of scale just in terms of financial requirements. However, I think this is going to be a stepping stone where we see a lot of urbanization happening in India. A lot of those 300 odd million units of residential units being added, or the commercial ones, they are all greenfield. So there is going to be a requirement where there is going to be concentrated development, which means that district energy is going to be very innovative and a very energy efficient solution. So this one here is mostly about your risk allocations and asset transfers, and one of the critical elements, in fact these tend to be pretty much within the first couple of times where we sit down with either of the clients, public or private players, is we try to understand the perspective of where and how a project is going to sit and how is it going to be de-risked from both a cash flow perspective, from a regulatory perspective, and from also a efficient efficiency or implementation perspective. So different models, but the risks tend to be quite significantly unique for each of those models. For instance, if you're looking at a build, operate, and transfer. So again, this is coming from that hybrid model, right, where you have the PPP, where the private player is going to design it, build it, and operate it, and most probably it's going to be the government who is going to own it. So the risk is definitely for a private player. It's going to be the construction and performance risk, because those are going to be the key metrics that he will have to kind of keep monitoring. And the ownership, when it goes back to the public authority, that is where all of the asset transfer negotiations will start taking place. So risk allocation for each of these projects are going to be different. And what we have seen in the UK that has worked well, just in terms of the models, is a combination of, so where we are looking, it's a combination of build, own, operate, transfer. So, or build, operate, transfer. And it's when they have the concession periods where all the assets will be transferred after the end of concession. So there is a significant amount of risk mitigation and risk migration that has to be taken into account. So we see the energy service companies which come in and again can have different BOT models, and they are designed so that there is the operating period, and during the operating period the anchors become quite important, the anchor tenants or access to those anchor tenants, which again we will have to kind of mitigate in any environment. So again, in the Indian context, that is going to be critical. There is going to be a private player who can have these systems, but who is going to actually be the end user for that system, and how is the tariff going to be structured? How are the fixed and variable prices going to be structured, and what is going to be the incentivization for those segments? So risk allocation, like we were talking about different areas just now, uh, in different uh, positions in the life cycle. Now, when you're planning it, designing it, building it, there is always the risk for delays to happen, which are mitigated by your LD contracts, etc., which would say that your fixed price or date certain EPC contracts where you start having penalty kind of a format. So whoever it is your EPC contractor or your civils contractor, is incentivized to kind of deliver on the timelines. And then when we come to financial risks, the capital structures are going to be quite critical. And if there is any viability gap funding, again, this goes back to how our regulations can work. And the viability gap funding will definitely be useful when we say, yeah, this is, say, 100 crores of rupees involved for creating a district cooling project, and we have access, the private player has access to 95% of it. What happens to that 5%? Where is the viability gap there, and what is funding it? So this is where it would be highly useful for the governments to step in and say, this is how it's going to work for us. And the risk table here, again, I'm a financial advisor, so I quite like looking at my cost inflows and cost outflows and where my risk lies in the development stage, in the construction stage, and in the operation stage. So development stage is the feasibility studies, permits, etc. So this is again going back to our policy and regulation systems, where we say that the guidelines and the benchmarks and the standards, etc., kind of need to be adhered to and also need to be set properly by the authorities, so that there is clarity in what is being required from a designing perspective or a developing perspective. And during construction, again, if it is construction period is quite critical, because any big ticket item will have debt or will have equity, and will have those schedules for drawing down money. And all of those schedules are going to be linked to different payments, like your engineering payments or your civil works payments, etc. So ensuring that that timing is a critical element in this segment here. And irrespective of whatever is the model, right, that's going to happen, even if it is a public, a completely public owned entity or a completely private owned entity, these risks are still going to exist, and these risks still need to be mitigated. And from a district cooling perspective, these are quite unique, because district energy, especially here, you require a lot of civil works, like with any infrastructure projects, but there are a lot of civil works involved, and there are a lot of different stakeholders involved, whereas that is where planning and risk mitigation becomes really important. So lastly, what's been very significantly developing across is energy as a service, where performance contracting models, you can very quickly unlock your investment by monetizing that flexibility and savings. So you can start providing energy as a service, almost like how we have in the Indian context. Much like just getting electricity, it is just getting your cooling. So instead of having a unit of AC here and there, you just have cooling and energy as that service. Now that is the whole concept of district cooling and district energy networks anywhere. So how is that we can actually create awareness and say that this is a model that will really work, and this will work well, and then understanding it. Now, very quickly going into some examples. So there are some very unique propositions here in India, like in the gift city, and not just there, but some of the lesser known, but at the same time definitely existing propositions, like in Hyderabad. The My Home group has been looking at smaller district energy modules. So most recently, I think some of their developments, again, massive developments in the city of Hyderabad, where you'll have 300 to 400 odd residential units, or a significantly large amount of commercial space. So their recent Twitza has a smaller, district cooling is because you have different consumer varieties, whereas this one is, but it's still the same kind of structure where they have chillers and they have all of the civil equipment there and all of the civil planning there to provide energy as a service to all of those people. So it is in existence in India, and it will start taking shape, because now we see in Hyderabad, it's not just my home group, but there is Jaiberry group, and across you see DLF also looking at energy as a service. So it's going to evolve, and I think to make it a bit better, there's a lot that needs to become from awareness and also policy and regulations. And just looking at financing, uh, so financing cooling, it's not just about creating where this capital is coming from, but also looking at the cash flow certainty, like we have been talking about. Where are your anchor tenants, and what are all of the other things that we are going to uh, mitigate and make sure, like the flexible assets like the thermal storage and smart controls, etc. So how are those numbers going to work, and why is the demand side flexibility again going to be the consumer engagement is going to be the critical element, as much as the technology is going to be a critical element here. So overall, the summary is there is a whole system approach here. There's going to be a behavioral, infrastructural, and financial approach that is required to make our district cooling systems viable. And we're going to have to create technical literacy and collaboration and cross-sector design. So this is where I think this module also comes in. So we hope that this technical literacy is going to be helpful in spreading the different ways district cooling can achieve its purpose. So thank you.
Thank you for that detailed insight into the business models and financing aspects, Shravya. It's great to hear about such a critical topic for DCS implementation. And with that, I would like to now invite all the panelists for the Q&A round. We have received some interesting questions from our participants, and the first one goes out to you, Piyush. So the question is, after several years of working on implementation of district cooling in India, what do you see would be in the short term, say 2 to 3 years, the challenges or barriers that the Indian market is facing? And also, how do you think these challenges can be addressed? So over to you, Piyush.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. I think there are plenty of challenges, but when we say challenges in the short term or the short run, the first and foremost thing I would say is the awareness. Awareness on the technology, awareness on the benefits of DCS, awareness on its financials. I feel that developers are not even aware of the benefits that the district cooling systems can bring in. Most of the people feel that the initial capex is very high and also the opex can be very high. But when we try to compare the life cycle cost over a span of 30 years and try to understand the net present value of it, it's actually more economical, more cost saving than the conventional systems. And this is one of the biggest thing that needs to be addressed. The second thing I would say is the anchor customer. So even if a developer understands the concept of district cooling system, they find it difficult on how to sell it. For example, if there are not ample anchor customer, if the demand doesn't rise as planned, then eventually they'll end in burning cash from their pockets. So the risk is very high, and there should be adequate measure to mitigate the risk. The third thing is the financials. So the DCS essentially has a very large payback period, and there are low risk mitigation facilities, which often make it very difficult for the developers to undertake DCS projects. There are more to it. Maybe there are plenty of policy things that could be brought into picture, but I think regulation and policy takes its own time. So when we talk about short run, some of the policies could be kind of, let's say, uh, put into place, but majority of it will not. Thank you. I think it's very relevant when we talk about challenges. We also should identify the areas or the measures that can address these challenges. So as I said that the first challenge is the awareness, and in line, I also feel the first measure should be massive awareness raising campaigns. So while we try to work on multiple fronts to build the entire ecosystem, awareness raising must not stop, and it should be something like a continuous activities going on, bringing more and more players into the picture, more and more cities, planning commissions, urban planners, land developers, and so on. So awareness raising, the first measure. I think the second would be the role of private sectors. So private sector can actually play a very important role over here. So all the premium segments or the bigger projects that are coming, they can at least have a feasibility of DCS done, and if found suitable, they can implement project on DCS. I also feel that the customers from the premium segment would not, find it difficult to have cooling as a service. And if we have ample projects through these private sector developers as well, we will have a basket of successful pilot projects which can be disseminated, and awareness will naturally follow. Uh, then I feel that the center should give kind of a guideline to the smart cities under the smart city mission to undertake district cooling system as a part of their resource circularity. So the smart cities, they are also supposed to give a plan for managing their municipal waste. And district cooling system presents an excellent opportunity for integrating all the municipal solid and liquid waste into the cooling that can be generated through district cooling systems. So I think that all the developments happening in and around the smart cities should kind of take a view from a resource circularity point of view and undertake projects on DCS. At least the feasibility should be done for sure. And then, of course, if found suitable, they can take this forward. Then I also feel that all the newer developments that are happening or the redevelopment that are happening also in the capital city of Delhi and other cities which are expanding must at least have the feasibility. So one thing for sure, I would say that any bigger land development project or the mixed land use development projects that are happening must consider the feasibility of district cooling systems. And lastly, I would say that the district cooling hub can play a very pivotal role in promoting district cooling systems in India, at least in the short run, because they can bring in more and more awareness for the stakeholders. They can do the policy advocacy. They can support various stages of project development and so on. So I think district cooling hub should be in place and be very active in this regard.
Thank you for that answer, Piyush. And the next question is for you, Ben. So the question is, what do you think are the three most important actions for subnational policymakers that they should take to implement district cooling in India? And also, what do you suggest the local stakeholders from public sectors in India, such as urban planners, can consider to integrate district cooling in India in the short term or medium term? So over to you.
What's really important is that we actually have a vision for district cooling at the state level and also the city level. This requires long-term thinking, which cuts across electoral mandates. District cooling is developed on the scale of 10 to 20 years. And so we need to have a long-term vision, which is agreed between both industry and government for development of district cooling at the subnational level. This is the most critical, and ideally having some kind of target and linking it into things like state action plans on climate change, and also the economic strategy of the state is really important. And that's what we've been doing in Tamil Nadu, where we have a roadmap working with Maharashtra also to integrate into Viksit Bharat from the Environment Department, but it's needed also in other states. So that long-term vision is critical. Secondly, we need to get district cooling integrated into urban planning. There's a huge amount of urban development going on in India. Some of it is planned, some of it isn't planned. Where we have master plans and local area plans, trying to identify specific zones where district cooling can be prioritized is really important. And in doing that, we can then start to plan out district cooling infrastructures as a public utility alongside water, power, and other utilities as well. And then finally, there are specific barriers that are present in the power regulations, which can put district cooling at a disadvantage. And these need to be assessed at each state level and identify, is district cooling actually competing on a level playing field, whether that's a level playing field in terms of power tariffs, a level playing field in terms of taxation, and make sure that it is, because if district cooling is trying to connect customers and can provide a more sustainable and energy efficient option, but because of certain regulations or tariffs is unable to provide it more affordably, even though it should be able to, then that can get checked out as well. And in some countries, we've seen things like thermal storage tariffs to support district cooling, or I think Maharashtra has come out with a preferential tariff for district cooling that can access the industrial tariff. So some of these subnational actions can be taken to help drive district cooling. So thank you for your question. So in terms of urban planners, what we need actually is at the master plan level, master plans may be getting updated every 15 to 20 years. What we should be seeing is actually district cooling coming out as a priority technology, and specific zones where density will be sufficient and the mix of buildings, particularly we're looking for industrial, institutional, commercial areas, should at a certain density be required to evaluate district cooling projects, and if they are viable, the state government should be considering that actually the development, whether that's by a real estate developer or by the public sector, should be made mandatory, and mandatory inclusion into things like infrastructure design and leaving space for things like a district cooling plant. We're a long way from that in many states. What's needed to get there actually is projects get tested, and so in Tamil Nadu, we're looking at FinTech City and Knowledge City to give the confidence to the state government for that kind of policy. But already we know that there are existing projects where this has been done, and Gift City is a good example where mandatory development of district cooling was envisaged from the beginning. So by getting it into the urban plan at the master plan level, that's a critical action that can happen across all cities. But even a number of cities are developing local area plans and zonal plans. And at that level, which maybe is done more frequently, we can integrate district cooling from the beginning. So we did assess a number of smart city areas in the past, but each city will have a specific new redevelopment or urban expansion or special economic zone. We need to identify these projects, and from the very beginning with the master planner, discuss that district cooling should be integrated. And in most climate zones of India, for large dense projects, we can expect district cooling to provide more affordable and more sustainable cooling if designed correctly. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank you all for joining us today and for staying engaged throughout the discussion and for your thoughtful questions and interest in this topic. I'd like to extend a big thank you to the panelists for sharing their time, insights, and experiences. Your perspectives on district cooling in India have been incredibly valuable. We hope today's session has given you all useful insights and inspiration to take this work forward in your own context. So please do stay connected with us, and we look forward to continuing this conversation on shaping a more sustainable cooling future for India. Thank you once again, everyone, and have a great day ahead.